have had an incredible career in the earliest days of the Ethereum network by being one of the first employees at Consenys. What was your first ever investment and what got you started?
Well, I didn't really know it was an investment at the time. I guess I was getting paid in Bitcoin in 2014. And then when the Ethereum project came out, I mined Ethereum. Again, is that an investment? A lot of people consider it that, but it's also access to what we especially believed at the time. We'll see kind of where the future goes. A fundamental tool that you need to access the ledger, what we thought was going to be the global economy, or at least a very important tool in the global economy. And I think still is proving to be that for sure. And then when I would think about something that I consciously invested in, like outside of that sort of thinking of being part of a crypto ecosystem, I invested in my own business. So I started a community space. It was called the Regenerative Resource Network. And we renovated a space, opened it up as a kind of like hybrid for-profit social enterprise model where we would rent it out for like events, photo shoots, and film shoots, and then donate it back for different community events, which for me at the time was the early version of Resource, where I began to I developed my first prototype of Resource, which was like a Web2 barter system.
How did you get into this space?
So I went to a meetup, Bitcoin NYC, hosted by a guy named Jonathan Mohan, if I remember correctly. And it was the announcement of the Ethereum project to the New York community. And there were like 40 people there. Mostly I remember it being like a room of 40 males. Through that, I met a lot of the early New York Ethereum community, including Joseph Lubin, who was one of the founders of the Ethereum project. And I had set up a meeting to connect the think tank I was part of in the early Ethereum project to talk about the things that we were thinking about. About a week before that meeting was supposed to happen, I decided to leave the think tank for some different reasons and asked for a job to work on Ethereum because I thought it was going to be a cool project. And then I had a job like, I think 3 days later.
So I'd love to know, in your mind, what role do you play in the wealth space and why is it important?
I would say it's about creating more opportunities for people to actually follow their curiosity and not have to be running the rat race. So it's like, if you are a massage therapist, to be successful, it's like what you have to go out and like market yourself and compete and like find a digital marketer and like find an accountant. You end up doing all of the things of like running a business, but you're just a sole proprietor and really you just want to be a massage therapist, right? So it's like, why doesn't our system have more support for people like that? Because if that was true, then that person is actually practicing their craft more, which is actually what they're good at, not like running the admin side of a business. And I think that if more people are supported in doing that, then we create a more diverse economy. If you start to develop business and finance that actually serves people, in that that's the service, right, of like, I'll be the business for you and you do your craft. And I think really that's where finance would fit best in the world. Then I think that you would inherently level the wealth playing field, because then finance isn't an engine just to make wealth for itself. It's actually there to service and create wealth for others, and then its wealth is like a byproduct of that rather than the end goal, which is how it is now. So Resource, we're playing with this idea. It's like a futuristic barter system. So when you join Resource, you start earning Resource dollars, which you can think of like the US dollar. You don't have to buy them, you just earn them. And the way that they're created is when businesses join, everybody gets a line of trust, which is like a credit line. And with that line of trust, you can essentially start to spend Resource dollars before anybody's paid you yet, because the community knows that you're a real business, you've been in business for so many years, they know that you're good to pay that back because somebody else is going to come buy from you. So you basically create this like circular economy that could be as big or as small as you want, because essentially we're a protocol that enables people to start these networks. We've started the first network ourselves that's mostly focused around the local food supply chain. So every new market that starts with like a local food provider. Once you have food, then people understand what you can use the currency for, because they can buy their groceries with it. From the food, you can bring on health and wellness practitioners who start to buy the food. They start to spend the currency with each other. You start to bring on local businesses. So it's all about strengthening the local supply chain. And exactly how it works is the local businesses who join, they start to give their employees the resource dollar each month as like an additional benefit or perk that they have. The employees then spend that with the network of food, health and wellness, childcare. The businesses earn new customers from this circular economy who come back to shop with them. So if the print shop joins and then the health and wellness practitioner needs to get some flyers made, then they find, oh, which print shop is on the network. So that's the system that we've created so far. We're currently in Asheville, North Carolina, which is where we launched, and Austin, and starting to launch in Los Angeles, as well as Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a county in North Carolina called McDowell County. So we're very much now starting to expand through this like ambassador model, where when people hear about us and they understand like, oh, I know the grocery store and I know a bunch of local businesses, I'd love to start this here. And then they become a stakeholder in our cryptocurrency network by earning our source token, which is kind of like the underlying token behind the resource dollar, or one of the backings behind it. So right now, any business that's like legitimate, so like, you know, not a scam, can join resource, and they don't necessarily need a credit line. So they can start to earn the resource dollars. So that kind of like solves any sort of you know, if someone didn't get a credit line, but if they join resource and start performing well, then it's accessible to them in that way. And so one of the things that we've noticed is a lot of people like to join and they don't want to spend the credit line right away. They'd rather just like see who they connect with in the network. So what we're doing now, it will actually give you some resource dollars first, and then we, as like the network reserve, take on that initial debt, which we will pay back with transaction fees later on down the line. So we're effectively stimulating the economy by focusing on stimulating local food providers, health and wellness providers, those kinds of things. So in the short term, to be evaluating the businesses that we have and their transaction history within resource so far. So you can see, oh, this massage therapist or this physical therapist has, you know, made 10 transactions a month for 6 months. I feel pretty guaranteed to back them to be able to spend more resource dollars in the network. So we had originally thought that people would just join and start to spend their credit line right away. And now that we've realized that a lot of people kind of want to trust the system first.
I love it. What do you think has been the most exciting thing you've learned that you would want others to know?
But then now, as we actually have gone out into the world and we're seeing how people adopt the technology and use the currency that we've developed, there's a whole different underwriting model that starts to emerge. And so I think it's like being willing to not have it all figured out and not have the most beautiful technical plan to start to actually address some of the bigger intentions that the blockchain space has, I think is a strategy that will continue to serve a lot of people if they continue to explore that. As for a lot of people, they don't have a lot of US dollars, or it's difficult to get US dollars. So the fact that resource dollars, no one has to buy them, they just start to participate to earn them. So it doesn't exactly matter what's going on in your US dollar world.
How do you manage like parts of the supply chain that are not yet covered within the resource ecosystem?
Which is, we can't onboard anybody, and that's not like an accessible thing. It's just that there has to be, when that person joins, they have to want to buy something that's already there, and the community has to want to buy from them. So it is about continuing to build with this targeted approach, which obviously eventually I think we can get to a point where networks are large enough or curated enough or unique enough that people kind of can find their place. But at this moment in time, what we can mostly just do is build community and build community around people that they want to kind of buy and support the same things. Then, so narrowing in on everybody wants to support local businesses in resource. That's a huge audience. A lot of people want to support local, and actually supporting local circulates dollars more within any local community, and actually directly then increases national GDP because there's more circulation of money before it leaves the United States. So I think that the idea of keeping focus early on, rather than saying, oh, we need to expand into every supply chain, and just starting with, well, you could get food, you could get the local businesses on board, they can support their employees. The employees have more US dollars now because they're using resource dollars on groceries and childcare and other needs. And so from there, you can start to say, well, for the local food provider, what if you could then pay some of your vendors, like the salt company that you sell, in resource dollars, and they could pay their employees in resource dollars. So that's the way it expands. It's this very like organic, market driven actually function. And that supply chain angle is something that's already started to happen in Asheville, where our local food provider there, Mother of Food, has then created an excess of resource dollars, because most people in the community eventually end up spending it with Mother of Food. And so now they're helping their suppliers start to accept resource dollars and pass them on to their employees. And that's basically how the system grows.
Fantastic. Is there a person or a company that's really inspiring you in the space right now?
Anyone who's trying to do a business in like a local setting and trying to do it right, it's really, really difficult. It's especially now with like the impacts of inflation and labor shortage and just like all the shifts that we've had from the pandemic. I live in Taos, New Mexico, and there's a ton of businesses here who support the local community, buy from local farms, and continue to practice their craft, not because it's like a labor of how could I make as much money as possible, but really like how can I like almost provide a community service through the form of a business. And I think that entrepreneurs like that are more inspiring to me than I think a lot of the like, how do we make these huge, large, like solutions to everything.
So what advice would you give to somebody getting started?
Don't assume that crypto has it all figured out. It really doesn't. And it really needs people with outside perspectives to poke holes in it and find better implementations of it. Finding projects that really interest you and motivate you, even if you're not quite sure about them. Because honestly, I guarantee even some of the biggest projects in the space, they're not even quite sure about it. I mean, it's still so young and fresh, and mostly for most projects, they're just thinking about, well, I'm building this thing that then other people will use in different ways. So it really is a wide open terrain. I'm starting to talk to some of those people on the project. The people don't feel right. It likely won't generate the learnings that you're looking for in the mildest sense of it. And if you feel a connection with those folks, I mean, honestly, just volunteering or working for tokens, I think, is a good way to get started, especially if you don't have experience. Because if you're actually motivated by it and you actually do the research and kind of start to learn, you'll sort of pick it up very quickly. And maybe you don't stay with that project, but you've started to gain a little bit of experience and reputation. And then now the next time that you find a new project, you kind of have like more of a leg up. And that's basically the way of getting a reputation in crypto or learning in crypto, is just volunteering and contributing to projects.
And how can we keep in touch with what you're up to with the resource network?
Our protocol website is resource.finance. And from there, you can find like our Twitter and our Discord, white paper, all those kinds of things. If you're a business or an ambassador, you can go to app.resourcenetwork.co. And you can also get to that from the protocol website. And there you can see what a marketplace is like, what businesses are using and accepting the resource dollar. You can apply there. And you can also apply to be an ambassador there. Sure. I am Ashtay Tweets on Twitter.
Incredible. Well, Ash, thank you for sharing your story, for being constantly curious, following that curiosity, and really being a role model to many women and just everyone looking at regenerative financial systems in the space.